And a very special good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Defo and 5 here on 5 Reasons Sports Network, where I would imagine I don't know if the Heat Nation is overwhelmingly depressed or that the Panthers should feel too badly about losing 2-1 to the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs have been favored in every game. A couple of their stars finally woke up and scored some goals in this series after doing a decent job against the Tampa Bay Lightning. These guys were all vanishing team and vanishing cream in the series so far, but they managed to come through with a couple of goals. And so, wow, Lubie, I don't know. How deflating was it? You had predicted that both of these teams were probably going down. It would make some sense that the New York Knicks, if they were ever going to muster up an effort, they would be able to do it last night at Madison Square Garden, facing elimination, down 3-1. You at least want to hold serve at home and force the Heat to try and close it out on their home wood, or face the very daunting possibility of having a 3-1 lead completely evaporate, having the series go back to New York at 3-3, which becomes a very dicey proposition at that point. You start thinking about bitter and ugly disappointment and unprecedented disappointment for the Heat franchise. And, if the Panthers lose this series, then wow. It's amazing how the narrative can change in just one day, is it not? How are you, Mike Lubie Lubitz? Are you okay with both of the losses that were sustained by the local teams last night in their quest to make history and both clinch a spot in their respective conference finals on the very same evening, which I guess they'll have a chance to do again on Friday night, tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. I keep trying to remind myself it's just.
You seem a little unsteady with that statement. You did not seem okay. What do you mean you're okay?
I'm
You're on
just.
shaky ground right now.
I'm very frustrated. I suppose the way Spoelstra's face looked last night is the way I felt, where I was just watching them going.
He seemed a little frustrated with the refs, didn't he, too?
Here they are. Here they are. The Heat we saw all year in big spots and big win opportunities look horrendous. And
Up
Jim.
10 in the first quarter, though. Looked like the Knicks were the
Yeah,
ones that were as flat as the proverbial Parisian runway model.
and that was the last time they played until what the 8 minute mark of the fourth quarter. I don't know. They look like the team we saw all year, where they they couldn't hit the side of a barn for a three, but they kept shooting them. I literally in the middle of the third quarter, I wanted Spoelstra to grab fucking Kevin Love and go, "Stop shooting fucking threes!"
That's his game, though, Lubie. That's why he was brought in. He can stretch the floor a little bit.
He's a good mid range shooter. If there if
He was always a decent three-point shooter, Kevin Love. I mean,
he
throughout his career.
became a good 3 point shooter later in his career because of what you just said. It allows to stretch the floor. But if you're
But
over,
look what you're complaining about. You're complaining about a guy that looks like he belongs in the David Posnack Jewish Center 40 and over league with Cody Zeller, and those guys show up, and you go, "Oh, geez, you think we can find somebody that's like 6'10" in a hurry?"
100%.
So you're counting on a guy that they acquired almost, seemingly. I don't know that it was an afterthought, but you weren't necessarily saying, "Oh, wow, Kevin Love is going to be instrumental in a championship run for
Look,
this team." It seemed like almost not a token gesture, but something that really didn't have all that much substance to it.
all the names I'm about to mention, except for one, you're going to have that exact reaction. Go, well, if you're counting on him, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. They've been counting on Caleb Martin and
Well,
Caleb
it doesn't help if anybody goes like 0 for 10,
and,
from
and,
3 point
and
range.
Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love. Those are the four guys that during the season you would have been like, oh, they're counting on these guys. But in the playoffs, they have, and they all have stepped up. Gabe Vincent fucking sucks right now. The last 3 games, Gabe Vincent fucking sucks. Caleb Martin, he woke up in the middle of the fourth, but he was horrendous the whole freaking game. Kevin Love, who again is Old Man River, had been really big for them in these playoffs. And Kyle Lowry, who, yes, as Andy said, Kyle Lowry from the 10-minute mark on looked like playoff Kyle. The rest of the game, he was an abomination on both ends. And that's my problem is the reason they've been leading the series like this is when they're off on offense, you don't know because their defense and their effort so strong. Their defense was ass last. Like they were so sloppy and lazy.
It has you swearing more this morning than you
I
usually do on
was
the
very
show. Yeah.
confused. It was just very frustrating watching that effort. Yeah, the refs in the fourth quarter were abysmal, but I had conditioned
All
myself.
that being said, I mean, as bad as the Heat were throughout most of the ball game,
60-point
and I was back and forth between that and the Panther game, trying to pick my spots, which doesn't always work out. But I came back to the Heat Knicks game, and all of a sudden, the Heat are very much in it.
Yes.
About what 5 6 minute mark of the fourth quarter. They're right there, like teetering between being down like 5 and 3 points, and it looked like the Knicks were going to be the ones that ended up on the old choke collar and ended up needing shock treatment after the game. But the end game was a little sloppy by the Miami Heat, no doubt about it. They definitely crumbled at the very end, maybe aided in part by some questionable officiating.
It was
But
just the refs got weirdly involved, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. And again, like you said, he played horrendous to me the entire game, and we're down two with like 2 minutes left. When
they had no business being in that game after they got to the end of the third quarter. You thought, wow, that was it.
the one
They
thing I'll
were
say
done.
that is the most confusing is, and remember we've talked about this in the last 4 years, and it's why people were giving him so much credit this playoff season. Is Jimmy Butler would have these great games, and then he would throw a game in there, and you're like, where was Jimmy Butler? The last two games, his stat lines are nice; they're fine stat lines. But if you watch the game, the key stat to me is this. Look, and he's not Iverson, but Jimmy Butler taking 12 shots. Like, why is Jimmy Butler in a closeout game taking 12 shots? Like,
He did seem to be somewhat of a spectator out on the perimeter there while everybody else was in action. I don't know. Was that a concerted effort on the part of the Knicks to, kind of minimize what it was going to be, coming from Jimmy Butler in that ball game? I didn't see any, real specific effort by Thibodeau to double team him every time he touched the ball. So, if it was going to be the theory that let somebody else beat you, somebody else has been beating them. But yeah, Jimmy Butler was not the dynamic presence that he's been in many of these playoff games, that especially in the Milwaukee series, where you thought, my God, how good is this guy? He looked fairly pedestrian in this game yesterday.
look, and as good as, and Ethan was great yesterday.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff he was saying scared me because I'm like, he's not wrong in what we've seen from them in these playoffs, but that's not the team we had seen all year. When we had Ethan on the last time, that's what we saw last night. Ethan the last time said, yeah, the weird thing about the Heat is, especially Butler and Spo, they like having their back against the wall. And that's their thing. But these playoffs, they've actually been pretty good at embracing the moment and not having to have their back against the wall. Well, last night it felt like they did a 180, like to playoffs past, where they had an opportunity to put a team away and they just didn't. And you can blame their entire team. I mean, no one played a good game. I mean, there's no one. Robinson woke up in the fourth quarter. They woke up and were like, okay, maybe we can do what we did versus the Bucks, and they almost did it. It's just annoying to me that you don't do that whole game. Now the Panthers, I'm not blaming them. They actually played hard, and that was my problem.
That was a tightly contested game all the way
They
through.
played hard. They were
Yeah.
in that game. You said it, and Jessica Blaylock said something yesterday that I don't know if either of us had realized, that four of the best offensive players in the game of hockey on one team had not scored in a whole series.
Yeah.
That scared me. I was like, oh, okay.
Nylander and Marner had goals in the game last night. Now, those were the first goals. You have still nothing from Austin Matthews, who supposedly is, under consideration as being the best player in all of hockey, which, I may, be a little bit of a stretch out of the Toronto fans, but, nonetheless is a, high caliber player. And Tavares, who is usually clutch. I mean, remember this guy with the Islanders for so many years, John Tavares? I mean, you didn't want to face him. If you were, rooting for the opposition, you absolutely wanted to have Tavares on your team. And, yeah, he's been a non-factor. And those were guys that, had, either 40 or like 36 goals for the season. And were decent in the Tampa Bay series. They just disappeared so far against the Panthers. Panthers played a good game last night. It wasn't bad. Bobrovsky made some great saves in the game. I mean, you couldn't complain about him. This guy, Woll, who got the start for the Toronto Maple Leafs after the Samsonov injury in the pipes, was dynamite in most of the spots. I mean, the Panthers had plenty of scoring opportunities. It wasn't like they did anything particularly wrong. I think it's kind of indicative of how the series has really been. We're all euphoric and carried away with the 3-0 lead, but all of the games have been tight. I mean, all of those games, it could just as easily. I mean, this is cliche to say, be Toronto up 3-1. Let's face it. I mean, they got that amazing Reinhardt goal in overtime, where he goes back around the net and puts it between the goalie's legs. Wall in the previous game. That could go either way, and any of the two previous ones in Toronto easily could have gone Toronto's way. But I guess the first game was probably the most dominant performance by the Panthers. Other than that, it's been kind of a toss up. So what are we supposed to do now, you morons? That's the question, right out of Animal House.
I'm trying to not lose my
The assumption would be that the Heat back home,
yeah.
with this opposing imposing weather that the Knicks are going to have to
I
deal
hope
with.
it's hot as it's been hot the last 2 days. Let it be hot. It's Mike Greenberg and
It's
Jalen.
supposed to be in the 90s. I mean, that could do it. That could decide the series.
Look, the reality is Jalen Brunson, you understand, played every minute in that game.
Well, and he had 38 points. I mean,
He played
the guy
great,
was brilliant. Yeah.
but he played every minute in that game. And he's not LeBron. He's 5'8".
There are three big guys that have been coming through. I mean, it's the bench that's made the difference. You did get Duncan Robinson for the Miami Heat coming through, but like you said, that was later in the game. Prior to that, I don't know how much of a factor he was. He ended up, I think, 5 for 10 from 3-point range in the contest. So, yeah, I mean, everybody knows that the reason that he's been on the bench for the last 3 years is because he's a defensive liability, and the rest of his game really doesn't stack up to what the Heat culture would mandate. So I don't know. I think most people are very comfortable. This is what I love about the postseason, because every game is pivotal.
Yes.
And now, with their so-called backs to the wall, and in both cases, the New York Knicks, they have to find a way to play a decent game here. They just do. They haven't done it yet. And the Miami Heat have been very tough at home, as most NBA teams tend to be. Witnessed Golden State last night, clobbering the Lakers. And then that series, with an atomic skull crusher. I mean, he got the flying elbow, Anthony Davis. Did you see what happened? They had to, cart him off in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
got hit in the head.
Possibly had a concussion. I just didn't see what happened. And I was
story today said that they didn't think it was necessarily a concussion, but that could be one of those things out of any given Sunday. Where James Woods is the team physician, and he goes, "No, he's fine." I don't know. They don't want to have him fall in a concussion protocol because, as we know well, as Dolphin fans, we have no idea exactly what that's going to be tantamount to being in the long run. I mean, is Tua okay now? I don't know. I mean, we're assuming he's going to play. I don't know. Is that a fair assumption? I'm not sure. Anyway, very deflating, though, because we had a chance to close out. See, now I've jumped on the bandwagon here. Right? It was them all season long. Those stinking Heat and the lousy Panthers. Can you believe this organization? What a failure. This Bill Zito, who was the executive of the year a year ago, all of a sudden looks like a bozo. Now he looks brilliant again. Still very favorable positions for both teams, you would have to say. As the Heat now have two swings to try and win one game, one of which is going to be in their home wood. That's what Friday night? They come right back here?
I think so, yeah.
And then I guess also again on Friday, the Panthers will be in action against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Leafs now in one of those spots where, this is why you never throw in a towel. You would think it was a relatively, small sample of teams that have come back from down 3-0 in hockey. Lubie, it's happened 4 previous times.
I didn't realize it's happened that many times. I was like, oh, that's a stat I don't like seeing.
That's hockey for you. Home ice means nothing. I mean, the home teams are well under 500 so far in the postseason in the NHL. Yeah. I believe it's like 35 and 27, something like that. I mean, but well under 500, the home teams. And we did see another home team prevail last night as Edmonton was able to knock off the Las Vegas Knights. So that series now is 2 apiece. That's been a wild series. And many people might assume that the Western Conference winner is going to come from that series with Seattle and the Dallas Stars now deadlocked also at 2 apiece. That'd be weird, man. If an expansion team, a second-year expansion team, made it through, I don't know that that's going to happen because Cinderella stories, as Max Baer said to James J. Brannick in Cinderella Man, people die in fairy tales too. So, you'll see these kind of things come to an end. It happened with Bobrovsky when he was with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Eventually, I mean, the talent that they were facing did overwhelm them, and that was it. They reverted back to being what they were, which was, unfortunately, a very highly placed also ran. But, I think that Edmonton-Vegas series is going to be the one that decides. So watch, Dallas will win the Stanley Cup. I just discounted them. I just eliminated. That's my one big thing. I just eliminated the Dallas Stars out of nowhere there, Lubie. How about that? Yeah. Pavelski, man, has been unbelievable for the Dallas Stars. This guy Pavelski, he's scoring like 4 goals a game. He's been terrific. Veteran, been around a long time. He has that true NHL postseason grit. All right, one other thing I wanted to mention. I can't resist this. and I did finally see the quotes from Bob Huggins, the West Virginia coach, who went on a radio show for some reason. I mean, imagine being the host of this radio show when Huggins starts calling everybody, the F word that rhymes with gags,
Oh,
referring to
I didn't
referring
know he was
to
saying that on the air. He was saying that word on the air.
yeah, several
Oh shit!
multiple times. I mean, he was talking about Christian,
Never mind.
using this,
Say that word.
homophobic slur.
Mm.
Look, anybody has to realize. I mean, you're in the public eye like Bob Huggins is, and you make public statements all the time. I mean, you're going on a radio show, and this is what you have to have some kind of a system of internal checks and balances, don't you? Some kind of editor in your head that says probably not a good choice there, Bobby.
Well, what's crazy, I have to hear it. I didn't realize it was that available that you can hear it. Supposedly the radio people, and they're like, it's a dude that like likes to provoke. Supposedly they were laughing
Oh,
with.
he egged him on. Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. I have to hear it. But supposedly they were like not a guest. Like you put it this way,
yeah.
when like Finer cursed the two times he cursed, we were not like,
You don't
hey,
know what to say. He's talking about snorting coke and eating chicken parmesan. Now he's giving out 3 losing picks, and he didn't want him dropping like 20 f bombs like you did when you started talking about the Heat today.
yes,
This was on terrestrial radio, where obviously
yes,
you had to slam a sledgehammer on a dump button
yes.
just to get it to work, right? Because usually you'd hit that dump button and it would just stick, and the words would still go out there while the guy was calling you an MFer and this, that, and the other thing, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh my god, this is a disaster. Program director comes with that horrified look, running down the hallway. What are you guys doing in there? What are you guys doing? You better clean it up. The FCC is coming to the office here tomorrow morning to talk to you guys. Okay, great.
Yeah.
We don't need any of that. That would not. I mean, this was a regular over the air like AM radio station doing sports talk
Yes, yes, yes.
in Cincinnati, where Huggins used to coach, and of course, still was a big figure there. But yeah, there seemed to be no reason for it. I mean, if you were doing a podcast, on Showtime or something, with Matt Barnes, it might be appropriate, but it never is going to be appropriate to use this kind of language disparagingly, speaking about people, especially in this age where we're trying to do our best to be open minded about diversity, Libby. I mean, it's about time that was dropped anyway, right? I mean, who uses this terminology anymore, right? I was 1950s Brooklyn, where you would call a guy, an FAG, and it was like, whoa, are you kidding me? And you had to come to blows after that. Anyway, Huggins does this repeatedly, but the image of Bob Huggins in sensitivity training strikes me as being really odd. Does it not? I mean, do you think I don't mean to condemn the idea that anybody can get help, but can you really see Bob Huggins with his demeanor in a sensitivity training class?
He's 69. He's almost 70. He said it. I just read the quote now. That's a
Yeah.
quote you say because you're just talking freely. And again, the fact that the radio people were not like, what? They just went along
I
with
know you
it.
didn't mean to say that, Bob, but is there any other way you could characterize the Xavier fans?
Yeah, exactly. You would have made a joke at least about it. Like
I
if
mean,
you,
he was talking about them throwing rubber penises on the court there, and then he made an assertion that perhaps they were jealous because they weren't using theirs properly, and under a giant umbrella of a word that. Well, let's face it. I mean, it was FAG, man. He used
yeah,
it several times.
yeah, he shouldn't be coaching anymore. There's no.
So
There,
they reduced his salary $1 million. I mean, like he's still making $3.2 million to coach college basketball, which ain't bad, right, Louis?
I
You would
mean,
take that in a heartbeat for 1 year of losing college basketball. But in sensitivity class, come on, Louis. That's imagine being the person that's in charge there.
the
I
major.
mean, it'd be like being Nurse Ratchet, doing Cuckoo's Nest. All right, we got to run. That was disappointing last night a little bit. I don't know. It makes it a little more exciting, doesn't it? Yeah, now you have a more challenging situation where in the Heat Knicks series, you lose this game 6, and you're thinking, it's now all on the line in a game 7 at the Garden after blowing a 3-1 lead. Kind of puts the onus back on the Miami Heat to show that what they were doing was something that was actually not a dream. And the Cats still in a very commanding position. Those games have been so close that you would imagine that they can't possibly lose four in a row. But stranger things have happened. All right. With that warning, we have jumped off the bandwagon and now are in the negativity pool, my friend. We just dove right in with both feet. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the both teams can clinch on Friday night. Still unprecedented. It would be historic. And we are history here today for today's edition of Defo on 5. For a very disappointed and disillusioned Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest, and we'll see you next time right here on 5 Reasons Sports Network.